You felt it, haven't you? That quiet humiliation. You sit in a meeting surrounded by people who speak loud but say nothing. You scroll through your feed, watching fools rewarded for their arrogance, while thinkers drown in doubt. You do everything right, learn, reflect, question, and yet somehow you keep falling behind. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just awake in a world that punishes awareness. We live in the age of the intelligent slave, an era where the brightest minds bend their backs to uphold the dumbest systems, a time when truth is optional and obedience is mandatory. And if you've ever wondered why stupidity thrives while intelligence suffocates, this is the story you were never meant to hear. Centuries ago, Plato warned us. In the Republic, he imagined a cave where prisoners mistake shadows for reality. They live and die believing lies projected on the wall. But one man escapes. He sees the light, the truth. And when he returns to free the others, they kill him. That cave wasn't just a metaphor for ignorance. It was a prophecy. Look around you. We live inside Plato's cave, surrounded by glowing screens in algorithmic shadows. We scroll through carefully curated lies and call it information. We perform morality online, not to become better, but to appear righteous. The one who dares to question, the one who walks toward the light, becomes the enemy. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who opposed Hitler, wrote something terrifying. Stupidity is more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. Why? Because you can reason with an evil person, but not with a fool. The fool doesn't think, he believes. He doesn't act from conviction, he acts from belonging. And that is the secret of power in every decaying civilization. It doesn't need thinkers, it needs believers. That's why the system loves fools and fears philosophers. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Stupidity doesn't always look stupid. It wears suits, it gives TED Talks, it tweets about innovation and empathy. It hides behind credentials, corporate logos, and empty motivational quotes. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." And modern leaders took that to heart, not as a warning, but as a strategy. Power today isn't gained through wisdom. It's gained through performance, through manipulation of perception, through the illusion of competence. And in a world where truth can be designed, the smartest people no longer lead, they serve the illusion. They build the algorithms, write the scripts, design the apps, and optimize the propaganda. The intelligent are not the rulers anymore. They are the engineers of obedience. It wasn't always this way. In ancient Athens, Socrates walked barefoot through the streets, questioning everyone, kings and beggars alike. He believed that wisdom began with admitting ignorance. For that, they executed him. Thousands of years later, the punishment is softer, but the pattern is the same. Speak the truth, and you won't be executed. You'll just be ignored, demonetized, deplatformed, or buried under noise. The tragedy of intelligence today is not that it lacks power, but that it lacks unity. Every thinker is isolated, fragmented, distracted. Meanwhile, the fools march in sync, chanting the same slogans, believing the same lies, voting for the same faces. Because the fool is never alone. Stupidity is a social bond. Nietzsche once said, "In times of peace, the warlike man attacks himself." And that's what's happening now. The intelligent person turns his sharpness inward. He overanalyzes. He doubts his worth. He questions everything, including the value of questioning itself.
While the fool, armed with blind certainty, storms ahead and claims victory, Not because he's right, but because he doesn't care. He's unburdened by complexity, immune to nuance, allergic to doubt. And in a world that rewards confidence over competence, the fool always wins the race he doesn't understand. Think about the education system. From childhood, you were trained to obey. Raise your hand before you speak. Memorize what you're told. Never challenge the book. And when you grow up, you're told to think critically, but not too critically. Not about the system that taught you. Not about the hierarchy that feeds on your labor. Modern education doesn't produce thinkers. It manufactures functionaries. It gives you enough knowledge to serve, but not enough to rebel. Plato's philosopher kings were replaced by PowerPoint kings, smooth-talking mediocrities who measure wisdom in metrics and morality in marketing. We don't educate for truth anymore. We educate for compliance. And so, the intelligent mind becomes trapped, useful, but powerless. You think deeply, feel deeply, see too much. You sense the hypocrisy, the manipulation, the endless performance of virtue and success. But you keep quiet, because you have bills, because you want peace, because speaking truth feels like screaming into a void. You tell yourself you're playing the game, but the longer you play, the more the game plays you. This is how the age of the intelligent slave sustains itself, by convincing the wise to serve in silence, by making intelligence a burden instead of a weapon. But there's another way. Nietzsche said the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The first step is to reclaim your solitude. Not loneliness, solitude. A space where you can think, without the noise of the herd. Turn off the endless stream of outrage and distraction. Read the words of the dead, those who thought before the noise. Learn from Machiavelli's cynicism, but don't become him. Admire Nietzsche's courage to stand alone, but don't lose compassion. Remember Bonhoeffer, who chose truth over safety. To think freely in an age of manipulation is not an intellectual act, it's a moral one. You might not change the world, but you can refuse to be ruled by its stupidity. You can choose awareness over comfort, truth over acceptance, depth over dopamine. Because the system doesn't need your genius, it needs your compliance. Your greatest rebellion is to stay awake. And if you ever feel alone in your clarity, remember, every civilization that fell to stupidity began with people who saw it coming. And maybe, just maybe, those who see, like you, are not cursed. They are simply early. So keep your eyes open. Think deeply. Question everything. Because the only thing more dangerous than a world full of fools is a world where the wise forget their power.
But let's go deeper. Why do the smartest minds serve the stupidest systems? Why do those who could change the world end up maintaining its decay? The answer is both tragic and brilliant. Because intelligence, without courage, becomes servitude. We've mistaken intelligence for freedom. We think that to know is to be free, but knowledge alone doesn't liberate. Knowledge without moral conviction is just utility, and utility always serves the highest bidder. That's why in every age, the clever end up building the tools of their own oppression. The scientists who invent surveillance, the engineers who design addictive algorithms, the economists who justify exploitation with graphs and equations. They don't see themselves as villains, they're just doing their jobs. But that's how tyranny survives, not through monsters, but through professionals. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote that people are easy to control not because they're weak, but because they want to be safe. And what is intelligence, if not the art of avoiding danger?
The intelligent mind calculates risk, weighs consequences, predicts outcomes. But the consequence of constant caution is compliance. So the brave fool changes the world, while the cautious genius maintains it. That's the paradox of our time. The dumbest rise because they don't care about falling, and the wisest fall because they see too clearly what falling costs. We call it progress, but look closely. It's just better engineered slavery. We wear freedom like a badge, but every click, every scroll, every purchase feeds a system that knows us better than we know ourselves. We trade our thoughts for convenience, our privacy for pleasure, our attention for approval. Plato's cave has evolved. The chains are digital now, and the shadows, they're rendered in 4K. Think about it. The people who built the world's most powerful technologies, the brightest engineers and designers, ended up creating systems that trap their own creators. Even they can't escape the pull of the machine. They built the algorithm, and now the algorithm builds them. That's not intelligence. That's imprisonment disguised as innovation. Bonhoeffer, before his death, warned that stupidity is not an intellectual defect, it's a moral one. It spreads like a virus through comfort and conformity. Once a society begins to prize ease over truth, stupidity becomes a survival strategy. And once the masses adapt to stupidity, the intelligent adapt to serving it. Because intelligence seeks order. It seeks meaning. But in a corrupt system, order becomes obedience, and meaning becomes manipulation. The smart learn to rationalize the irrational, to make madness sound logical. They call it strategy, policy, efficiency. But it's really just cowardice in clever clothing. Nietzsche would call this the decay of the spirit. The will to power replaced by the will to comfort. When the philosopher becomes a consultant, when the visionary becomes an influencer, when the rebel becomes a brand, the battle is already lost. Because rebellion isn't profitable. Confusion is. Fear is. Ignorance is. And every empire knows, you don't suppress thinkers, you employ them.
That's what the age of the intelligent slave truly means. The system no longer fears intelligence. It owns it. But there's still hope, because awareness, once awakened, cannot be undone. The intelligent slave is dangerous not because of his mind, but because one day he remembers his worth. And when that happens, when enough minds refuse to sell their silence, the system trembles. Because the foundation of every lie is the obedience of the wise. Withdraw that obedience, and even empires fall. So ask yourself, are you using your intelligence to build truth or to decorate your cage? Are you free or just efficient? Are you awake or just aware? The difference is everything. Freedom doesn't begin with rebellion. It begins with responsibility, with the refusal to let your mind be used as a weapon against your own soul. Stop serving systems that make you small. Stop lending your genius to machines that dull your humanity. Stop confusing survival with success. Because one day, when this era ends, and it will, history won't remember how clever you were. It will remember whether you had the courage to think freely. This is not a call to revolution. It's a call to remember that intelligence was never meant to serve power. It was meant to challenge it. The thinking was never meant to make you rich. It was meant to make you real.